Hey guys, I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. I apologize about the background noise. Someone's doing construction nearby. I hope it's not too disturbing. I thank you again for all of your subscriptions and for all your comments and for all your support. I've been getting a lot of amazing messages from you guys, and I just am really grateful. In this video, I want to speak to you guys about how there is a lot of not only shame, and I've spoken about the shame spiral that INFJs go through. If you guys are interested, you can go check that video out. But there's also a lot of guilt in INFJs, and that's something that we really need to be careful of because it prevents us from living a completely full life because we're always feeling guilty for everything we are, everything we do, everything we have, all of that. For example, when I was a child, when I was really young, I think I was about 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. I mean, I was just still a baby, and I realized very early on in my life that there are people on this planet who are very lucky, like me. I had food in my belly, even if it was not enough sometimes. I still had food. I had clothing. I had shoes most of the time. And I had parents, that took care of me. I didn't have to work in a factory somewhere. And I went to school, which a lot of people on this planet don't have the luxury of going to, right? Also, not only that, I had siblings to play with, really amazing siblings. So, I had playmates, which is really nice. I wasn't by myself, which is an INFJ's worst nightmare as a child. So pretty much all in all, my life was pretty cool. I was very lucky, right? And I realized that fact very early on that I am one of the luckiest people on this planet. And I realized very early on that there are a lot of people on this planet who do not have any of those luxuries that I have. They don't have enough food in their belly. They don't have clothing. They don't have parents that love them or take care of them. And they don't have the luxury of going to school. They have to go work as a child. And a lot of other things, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things that made me realize that I'm very lucky compared to a lot of different people out there, right? And as soon as I realized that fact, and I was as I said, very young at the point, I realized that, I am, for some reason, placed in this life rather than some other life. And that really irked me. That question of why? Why do I get to live this life, right? This luxurious, easy life, easy enough, whereas some other people have to live a really hard life. And that question of why was I born into this life and why not some other life, that question came into my head very early on as a child. I actually started thinking about it, I think as soon as I was 6 or 7 or even 10 years old. I don't remember exactly, but I knew that I was still going to school, middle school at the point, when I started thinking, why me? Why did I get to be so lucky? Why do I have this life and why not other people? Why do other people have to live a harder life than me? Why do I get to live an easy life? What made God or whoever it was that chose to give me this life? Why did they give me this life rather than something else? And those people who are living a really hard life, why do they get to live that really hard life and why not me? Right? And so what was the reasoning behind it? That question bothered me a lot. I thought about it all the time. And because of that, I was not able to enjoy my lucky life. I wasn't able to enjoy the fact that I had great parents and was able to go to school. I'd always be feeling guilty about it, always constantly be feeling guilty about it, thinking, oh my God, am I even allowed to enjoy this? I mean, there are hundreds and millions of people on the planet who do not have such a great life and they're living such a hard life. And even children like me who are working in factories and smoking in, smelling in or breathing in really crappy chemicals, toxic chemicals are killing them and giving them all sorts of diseases and dying early and all that stuff. I mean, you guys already know all this stuff. And so the main question in my head was always do I deserve this? And if I don't, then how can I enjoy it, right? How can I enjoy it? And so I spent a lot of my time feeling guilty about it and a lot of my time making my parents feel bad about it because I was like, well, we should give more money to charity or, we can't enjoy this. There are people on this planet who don't have this luxury. Or we can't enjoy that because blah, 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 blah. We can't go do this because, I'd always be talking about all this stuff. And they'd be like, just chill out and just enjoy it. Why do you have to think about all these things? You're a child. So that's something that I think comes up with us as INFJs very early on in life. We start thinking about these kind of bigger issues early on in life, because we see the injustices in life and we see the inequalities, and we realize really early on that it's not fair. But then also we also realize very early on that life isn't fair. Some people get to live very luxurious, awesome lives. Some animals get to live really luxurious lives. I look at the animals that are living in India on the streets, and oh man, they're treated crappily. I mean, people throw stones at them all the time. They beat them up. They live a really hard life. And then I look at the dogs that are living in the United States or in Canada, and they have their own prams, and they're wheeled around, or they're carried around, and they're given all these treats, and they're treated like gods. And so I used to wonder to myself, why do these dogs who were born in India get to live such a terrible life, or have to live such a terrible life? What lesson are they learning, or what did they do in their past life to deserve this? And then the dogs in the US, they must have done something really good in their past life to deserve such a luxurious, god-like existence, right? So that's a question that arises all the time. And now, as I'm living this amazing life where I get to live in the jungle and I get to live my ideal life, I'm so lucky, and I know this, I'm very lucky. I'm one of the luckiest people on this planet. Again, the same kind of feeling of guilt comes up in my head where I think to myself, but do I really deserve this? What did I do to deserve this? Like, why do I get to live this amazing life as an INFJ, as a person, as a human being, as a female, as an Indian-born female? There's a lot of women in India who are dealing with a lot of strife, a lot of domestic violence, a lot of abuse. They have hard lives. But for me, I'm living in luxury and living a really, really easy, thank you, universe, really easy existence, right? And so why? Why do I get to be so lucky, and why do they get to be so unlucky? So this kind of question pops up in my head all the time. I think about it all the time. And the only thing I can do, or I do right now at this moment in time, is I give back as much as possible. So I give my time, I volunteer a lot, I give my money, I do a lot of different charities that I believe in. And then I give my time in this way where I'm always constantly giving feedback, or through my podcast, through my writing, and through these videos, right? And so I try to make sure in my own head I'm trying to balance out the scales a bit by giving some of my luck away, by kind of giving some of my wisdom away, or my whatever it might be, whatever I'm trying to give away. I'm trying to balance the scales out. And I think this is a very INFJ trait, because we're always trying to balance out the scales, always trying to balance it out. And the balance that we're kind of seeking is something that's in our head. It isn't something that you can really personify or quantify. You can't say, okay, today I did this, and today you did this, so I'm gonna balance out balance out the scales by giving you this, right? And we do this all the time, this calculation in our heads, right? If someone does something nice for us, we'll think to ourselves, oh, the scales are not balanced. They did something nice for me, and I haven't done anything nice for them. For example, if my friend recently gave me a penknife as a housewarming gift, right? Very simple. He's like, it wasn't even worth a lot. Just take it and don't give me anything in return. I just wanted to give you something. But in my head, I'm thinking like, shoot, he just moved into a new home as well, and I didn't even think about giving him anything. Oh my God, I'm a horrible person, and then he thought of me and he gave me this gift, and I feel terrible. So the scale, the balance is off for me in my head. Now, of course, for him, it isn't, because he's not crazy like me, and so he's not thinking that at all. But for me, instantaneously in my head, I'm like, boom, okay, I need to do something about it to balance scales out. Now, not necessarily giving him something back, because that would be false, because that's not something that I thought of. I would just be copying him, so that would not be something that I would do. I would perhaps cook some food for him, or do a dinner with him, or something like that. I would balance the scales, but it doesn't necessarily have to be what tit for tat. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, you did this for me, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing for you. No, that doesn't make sense in our head either, because then it would be like giving someone false praise just because they praise us. We don't do that. We're not just going to do it just because you did it, right? But we have to balance out the scales in our head. So we always have to balance out, okay, you did something for me, and I haven't done anything for you yet. Okay, I need to do something in order to balance things out, right? And it's the same thing we kind of realize in every other aspect of life, because we are majorly about justice and equality and fairness in general, like about everything. It doesn't, no matter what the situation is, we're always thinking about, okay, how can this be more fair? How can this be more just? How can this be more equal, right? How can this work out in a way where I am not above someone and someone else is not above me, right? Well, everything always has to be equalized in our head. And the justice or the scale that we think of might not necessarily be someone else's idea of justice, right? But if in our heads we've achieved justice in that manner, then we're fine. We're like, okay, cool. Phew, I can breathe a sigh of relief, right? And so what I'm doing right now in my life, the amount of stuff I'm giving back and the way I'm giving back, I feel good about it. I feel relief. I feel, okay, I have an amazing life. I feel very lucky. I'm so grateful. I've always been very lucky. Considering I've come from one of the poorest countries in the world, also one of the poorest castes in the world. My family's from a very low caste, as I've already said. And so in that term, I've always realized that the fact that I'm living this crazy life where I am equal to a lot of the people that I can't believe I'm equal to, that people back home would never be considered equal to, unfortunately, that, I'm living this life, it kind of boggles my mind. It makes me realize that I am very lucky. And so I'm always trying to balance out the scales, but all the stuff I'm doing right now really helps me believe that I am balancing it out, right? Now, if someone else looks at it and says, oh, well, that's not balanced, it doesn't matter to us. Like, if in our head we figure out, okay, it's balanced and we've done everything that we can, then okay, cool, we'll feel good about it. The reason I also wanted to do this video is I really want you guys to remember that guilt is one of the most useless emotions out there. And I know it, but I still feel it. I'm not saying that you guys are going to be better off than me in that regard, but I want you guys to remind yourself, and I do this to myself as well every single time I feel guilt. I think to myself, this is a useless emotion. It is draining me, and it is completely useless. There's no point to it. I'm not going to get anything out of it. The person in front of me is not going to get anything out of it. So how about we actually do something useful with our time, energy, and space, mental space, rather than just feeling guilty? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of mental capacity. Yeah. So every single time I go into that guilt spiral, I stop myself instantly. I say, okay, this is a waste of time. I'm not going to feel guilty about this. Yes, I'm lucky, but how can I equalize the situation? So I hope that you guys can kind of pull something out of this video and maybe kind of use it for yourself. And also, hopefully, if you guys are feeling guilty for something in your life, then you realize that, yeah, it's an INFJ thing. I mean, you feel shame, you feel guilt, because we're always thinking to ourselves, we want the world to be equal, and it is not. And unfortunately, that's the case in this world. It's not never, but it's very rare that it is equal. The unfairness that is prevalent in this world is a part of the world, I think. As long as human beings are alive, I think unfairness, inequalities, and injustices will be apparent. That's just my opinion. Okay? Alright, I hope this makes sense to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments or feedback, let me know. And I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.